Okay, hopefully you out there can all hear me, see me. I am just double checking that this is streaming to all the right places because we're doing this session a little bit different to some of the other sessions. Okay. We are there, we're not here. Oh, I'm hearing myself on multiple screens. Where else am I talking? I'm definitely there. So let's stop that. Am I here on this page? Not yet, which is terribly disconcerting because that's where it should be coming through from. So we're live on Facebook, we're live on YouTube, but we do not appear to have gone live on there, which is by far and away the most important place to have gone live. Why is that not gone live? Oh, we're there. Happy days. Right, everyone, you're just going to have to zoom through Chloe looking shocked and annoyed, and I will remove it for the replay. But we are now live in all the places we should actually be live in. So I am actually going to get this show on the road. So here we go. Hello, welcome to our Q&A session at the end of day one of the eCommerce MasterPlan Virtual Summit. Yes, we made it to the end of day one. Now, this session, we are rather excitingly spreading around the internet live to people who haven't even signed up, because this is available on both YouTube and Facebook. So if you are watching us right now on Facebook and YouTube, you should be able to find a link underneath, because I've just commented on all of it, to tell you how to get signed up for today, for the whole summit, so you can get everything, the sessions but of the people who are going to be joining us, all the sessions that come up tomorrow, because we're doing this again tomorrow, and the replay of this and all the rest of it. You can get all of that by heading to ECMP, so that's short for eCommerce Masterplan.info/summit 2021. Simple as that, or Google for us, you'll find us. So do go and do that, not least because as I logged in to do this, as I am a little bit obsessed with our attendee numbers at the moment, I looked at our attendee numbers and we're on 896. And it would be amazing to hit the 900 by the time I log off. So please go and sign up. Make me very, very happy when I log off at the end of this by getting us to that 900. Okay, my own personal aims out the way now. I'm shortly going to be joined by 3 of our speakers from today's sessions who are here to answer your questions about customer acquisition for about the next 55 minutes or so. As I said, that we're streaming live across YouTube and Facebook. So if you're watching on those, thank you for joining us. If you're watching live on the Summit site, thank you for joining us. And if you're watching on the replay, why didn't you come up live? No, thank you for tuning in and watching the replay too. If you're on one of the live platforms, as this is going out, you can ask your questions live of us. To do that, on the Summit page, you've got a comments box at the bottom. On Facebook and YouTube, you know where the comments are on those two. They'll feed through to me, and I will do my best to juggle those amongst the other questions we've got to deal with our guests who will be joining us very shortly. As you can see, I'm getting a little bit summit fatigued here. It's been a very long day, so my words may not entirely work, but we will try. Our three guests are more alive than I am, so that's good. If you want to ask questions, please do send them through ASAP, because the sooner you send those through those questions, the sooner I can get them asked. And what tends to happen in these is people leave it till the last 10 minutes to ask their questions, and then I don't have time to ask them for you. So get those questions in early. And those of you who have sent in your questions already, thank you, appreciate it. If you're wondering what that's about, if you signed up for the summit, you can send in your questions in advance by responding to any of our emails with your question, and we'll pick those up and bring them in here too. Now, I need to, before we go any further, I need to give a big thank you to our marvelous sponsors. So let's just get them up on screen here, because our marvelous sponsors are the ones that all of you who are signed up to the summit right now, so you're not on Facebook or YouTube watching, you're here on a free ticket. And the reason you're on a free ticket is because of these brilliant companies who have sponsored the event, which means we can give all the tickets away for free. So we've got Omnisend, we've got Pure 360, Klaviyo, Digital Gearbox. We've got Becky from Digital Gearbox in this Q&A coming up in a moment or two. Wix, eCommerce, and Fresh Relevance. So huge thank you from me to all of them, and from all of you to them, for enabling us to let you in totally for free to this brilliant content, which is going to help you make so much more of your business in 2021. Okay, I've remembered to thank the sponsors. We're doing well here. So please do visit their sites, sign up for their emails, take them up on the offers they're bringing. They are all brilliant companies, because we wouldn't let them sponsor if they weren't. So please do show them some love, because they've enabled all of you guys to sign up for free. Right, it's time we got the panelists out here to say hello, to join me, and to start answering some of your questions too. So, hello guys, how are you all doing this afternoon?
Doing good. Good to see Chloe. Good to see you.
Good.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Excellent. Great to have you all here. Now we will go around the virtual room and give you a chance to let everyone know a little bit more about yourself and how they can find out more about you and get in contact if they want to. So we'll go ladies first. So Becky, you're first up.
Oh, thank you, Chloe. So yeah, we're Digital Gearbox. Well, I am more than just Digital Gearbox. There's a whole team of us. We're a team of PPC specialists based in sunny Bicester in the UK. We love Google Ads. We also do paid social as well. So we do Facebook advertising and LinkedIn advertising. You might have heard me speak today all about the Google Shopping automated biddings. If you didn't, go check it out. It's a good session, especially if you're doing Google Shopping campaigns. And you can find us at digitalgearbox.co.uk. We are also a member of Chloe's Cool Crew on the eCommerce MasterPlan website, and we do have a special offer for, thank you, Chloe, for that, where you can get a free consultation with me as well. So if you would like that, visit that little URL. There we go, down below.
Right. Given we're talking crew members, we better go to Luke next. So, sir, you are up.
Hello. All right. So I'm doing well, but I want a sugar high because I've eaten far too many. Tunox caramel wafers. Right. If anyone's not in the UK or is thinking of coming to the UK soon, just go to a supermarket and buy these and then go home. There's nothing else you need. That's your holiday done. Anyway, but yeah, I'm all right. What was I talking about? I spoke about e-commerce and facilitated navigation. We spoke about all that gloriousness and tried to simplify a relatively complicated e-commerce SEO problem. Yeah, doing good. Really glad to be here. So many awesome people on, whether you're watching live or recorded. So hello to each and every one of you. So yeah, that's me.
Awesome. And I would add that those caramel bars are brilliant. And I seem to remember eating a lot of those for lunches at secondary school. can't. That's when for those of you in other parts of the world, that's when you're a teenager. For some reason, I've had this vague thing that I worked out. If you had two bread rolls and 2 caramel bars, I could save 50p every week from lunch, and that's how my brain worked. Sharing too much. So Dave, tell us a bit more about yourself and Grip Advertising.
Hello. Yeah, so my name is Dave. I'm the founder of Grip, and we make hyper engaging. So we specialize in really creative advertising. So we help people to cut through the noise by making hyper creative campaigns across Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. And we help brands scale very aggressively who feel like they're stuck knocking up against a revenue plateau or a revenue glass ceiling. We help them break through that, find new streams of profitability just by basically amplifying their message, making it more appealing, making ads that don't feel like ads and that really capture the attention of their dream customers and turn them into super fans and repeat buyers. Oh, I think you're on mute, Chloe.
I am on mute. That may happen again. It's been a very long day. Just let me know. And that's at gripadvertising.com. People can find you, isn't it?
That's correct,
yeah. Dave. Excellent.
Yes, indeed.
Right, that's that bit done with. So, questions. Please, everybody out there, do get your questions in via the various comment boxes on the various platforms you're in. We want your questions coming in, and ask them sooner rather than later, so we've got time to give them the attention they deserve. We're going to start, though, with the biggie, and I have to cover this because we promised the attendees we cover this, and it's iOS 14. Now, during the course of the summit today, we had John Hagan, who came on and took us through his 10 ideas for getting round the edge. And I'm stalling because I'm trying to bring up the PDF of his 10 points, because I thought rather than make you guys go from 0 to 10 on this, we'd bring up John's 10 ideas first as a starting point. But he took us through 10 ways of dealing with iOS 14. In fact, actually, before I even bring up John's 10, how big an issue do you guys think this is for an e-commerce marketer at the moment? How much should we be losing sleep over it? Is it something we should just do some creative stuff to get around? Is it something which in a couple of months' time will just be our normal and we'll all be okay with it? Dave, I'm guessing you're probably closest to this out of our participants. So do you want to kick us off with iOS 14? Obviously not, no one wants to, but would you take the challenge for us?
In at the deep end. So yeah, for sure, it's definitely an issue, and it's definitely something that we're trying various different methods to get around at the moment. Always the most the truest thing is to look at money in, money out. But if there's any way that if you are using funnels, for example, which we do with a number of clients where we funnel people through one specific product, then we're building separate funnels for different traffic sources to really identify exactly what's going on. There's various different things that we're playing with regards to advanced attribution. There's things like Hyros, which seems to be good for some things and better, not as good for others. There's also things like Segmetrics. There's another one that we're looking at called Free Whale, which is specifically for Shopify. Well, specifically for e-commerce, but I've literally only started looking into that today. So yeah, it's definitely something you need to keep on top of. You should assume that on some accounts you're losing up to 40% of attribution at the moment. Facebook themselves say that it's somewhere in the region of 60 to 80% of people are actually opting or failing to opt back in to tracking. And what Apple said yesterday in iOS 15, it looks like there's even more advanced privacy options coming in. So again, you have to roll with the tide with these things. You can get kind of like caught up in it and lose sleep over it. But the most pragmatic thing is just to keep on top of it, keep looking for new solutions, keep part of the conversation, and try and find out what works for you. As I say, we've tried some things which work well for some stores and not for others. But I think the best thing is just to keep on top, make sure that you're keeping an eye on your early stage metrics. So for example, in Facebook, we always look at unique outbound click-through rate as a really good indicator as to how effective our ads are before we start making purchases. That's basically, it's a metric you can add into your Facebook dashboard, which shows you the unique number of actual humans that are actually seeing your ad and clicking through. It's a really good indication of how effective your ads are, and that is, of course, the first stage of getting people through to your store. This is very much a rule of thumb, and we can't guarantee that if people are clicking through, they're actually turning into customers. But it gives you a good idea that if your store conversion rate is steady at a particular percentage, somewhere between 2 and 4%, and you're getting a really good outbound click-through rate, you want it to be somewhere in the region of 1.5% or greater. The higher, the better, of course. then you can assume that that campaign is doing very well. So if everything else is falling apart, that's something that you can start to look at to get a good idea of how effective your ads are.
Wow. Good answer. And there's a lot in there. I'm going to be replaying that later. Well, probably not later. I'm going to sleep later, but later this week I'll have a replay of that and grab out the details, because it sounds like it's predominant. Well, I guess there's two key things that I would take from what you just said, Dave. One is that at the moment this is an attribution challenge primarily, and then second, big nod like that. And then the second thing is that we are very much at the beginning of understanding this. So I always think when we're at the beginning of understanding, it's best to let people like yourself, Dave, work out the ways around this, listen to them, and then implement. Because, you know, when Facebook ads might be like 10% of what an e-commerce person does, but for you it's 100%. Therefore, we can let you do the testing and learn from it. So maybe we need to just kind of if we're the average e-commerce brand doing sub-million turnover, we should just carry on okay for the next month maybe, and then look at what people are recommending.
Yeah, well, as you suggest, there's multiple factors to this. So one thing is the attribution, and another thing is that because Facebook's not getting that data back, then it's not able to optimize as effectively as it was before. So all those hundreds of thousands of millions of data points that it was getting before, that feeds back into the big scary ecosystem that is Facebook's algorithm, which is, you know, pumping out the perfect kind of people at the perfect time and learning when people purchase and exactly what the purchase behavior is. So that's also something that's been effective. Now, what we believe is that Facebook rely pretty heavily on advertising revenue. In fact, I think something like 99.99% of their revenue, right? So, yeah. And they've got a lot of very interested, very smart parties relying on that revenue, and therefore they're not going to take it lying down. They have in the past found ways around this, and there are various things. Obviously, there's CAPI, the conversion API, which is one thing. That's something which is still getting figured out. That's basically their server-side tracking, so you can actually send stuff back from your store. So behind so people actually convert on your store, you can send the data back to them rather than it being picked up by iOS or being inhibited by iOS. So that's something which they're working on. I'm absolutely positive there's loads more stuff in the pipeline as well. So absolutely hold tight. There's always fluctuations like this. You know, the people who keep on top of it and just keep looking solution orientated, they're the ones that come out on top. So there will be a solution. Don't get too scared, but do keep on top of it. Yeah,
don't get scared, everybody. I guess that's the main thing here. There are solutions coming down the line because it's in everyone's best interest to find the solutions. And of course, the human beings you're putting ads in front of are still buying. So, you know, the business might not be able to track them so much. Becky, you're quite deep in this world too. Are you taking a similar approach to Dave, or are you taking a very different approach?
Our approach is kind of what you were saying, Chloe, just seeing what the data tells us over the next few months, seeing what comes out of it, and going from there. I think Facebook were a little bit cheeky in the way that they combined the change to the attribution windows at the same time as the iOS 14 launch. So the data changed anyway. And I mean, for anyone who doesn't really understand attribution windows, if you set things up with a 30-day look back window, that's no longer there, and now it's 7 days, and you've got to really understand what your data was recording previously to what it's recording now, and just monitor what the difference is and get an idea of what the data is now. I mean, we've not really seen, I wouldn't say we've seen a 40% drop off in our audiences anyway on Facebook, but I mean, I'm hearing the same figure as you, Dave. I'm not disputing that figure, but we didn't see that drop off yet, but it may just be because it's still rolling out. So yeah, waiting and seeing.
Now, Luke, you're obviously not as deep in that world, so I think this would be no. Thankfully, no. you just have to deal with the world of Google algorithms, which is arguably worse. But I just want to share, because I want to move us on to kind of the angle which John took on it earlier today, which was a different angle, because he was kind of coming at it from the side of we should use this as an opportunity to become better marketers. And these are the 10 points he took us through. And this was in his session earlier today in the summit. So you can go back and watch that. Anyone who's going, oh, I missed that. Go back to John Hagan's session. And he and I chat through these 10 points. And I thought this was, really, the thing is, while some of the attributions change and some of the audiences have changed, actually, if we're doing good marketing, we're creating strong creative, and we're doing our best to put it in front of the right people, and we focus on our marketing kind of from a brand perspective rather than just a ones and zeros perspective, we should succeed through this. So, Luke, from that perspective, I wondered if there's anything you wanted to add into this, or if you'd prefer to say, Chloe, please, dear God, can we get off the subject of iOS 14? Either is acceptable.
So looking at this from a holistic perspective, probably less on a channel discipline way, I would say a lot of this will come down to what markets you're in. I think the US and the UK will be hit quite quickly, because of course it's where the money is. But I have a client who's based out in the Middle East. I have a client that's also based out in Africa, in southern parts of Africa, and the rollout to iOS 14 is obviously going to take a fair while longer. So also in the world of SEO, I guess it relates in somewhat, is that, as the guys have already said, no need to panic. And I think this just kind of also reinforces the fact that putting all your eggs in one basket is always going to be dangerous, whether that's SEO, whether that's paid. There is real power in having your own data, leveraging email properly, building your own lists, and being able to stick onto those, when these things do start to change and fluctuate. But I'm not going to try and pretend to be an expert in iOS 14. Dave was just literally dropping magic at that point, and I'm scribbling some stuff down in my notes. Not because I can do anything about that, because it's not my space, but it's just things, if people ask me, I can say, yeah, and sound sort of clever, and then say, don't talk to Dave about it.
I always like it when you always know you're getting good insight from these when the panelists are learning from each other. That brings us on kind of nicely-ish to our next topic, because one of the things I personally hope that the iOS changes are going to do is that it's going to lead to fewer marketers focusing in on one single channel as the solution to their business, and diversifying that mix, managing different mixes. So today we've talked about a whole range of different marketing methods, from Facebook ads and Google ads, through SEO, through email, through partnerships and influencer marketing, and there's a whole plethora more of them out there. So my question to the three of you is, how do we go about, let's say the early stage e-commerce business, they are maybe 6 months to 12 months in, maybe 2 years in, they've got the product sorted, they're driving sales, they're getting customers in. How do they decide which marketing methods on the acquisition front, where to put their time and their effort? Because that's probably the biggest cost to them at this point, is the time and the effort. Anyone fancy jumping in on that one? Dave's nodding.
Passionate.
So a nod, I will always go to the person who's nodding.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's a great question. And I think, one thing to bear in mind is that when you start advertising, it would just start with advertising, really the biggest leverage points, or leverage, depending on where you're on the world, is to get the creative right, to the messaging. Okay, so a really great path for people to follow is to go after those organic channels, whether it be going into groups, having conversations with real people, and we're talking very early stage, finding out exactly what it is about their problem that the product solves. And there's always a problem that it solves, right? So whether it be supplements, or whether it be a product that helps them in some way, shape, in their life, or whether it be luxury goods, then there's also always something, there's key things which people are looking for, and really having those conversations. One of the things that we touched on our session today, Chloe, is really understanding your customer better than they understand themselves. So that the best time investment when you're cash poor but time rich, very early on, is really understanding those points, and really noting down and getting a real kind of broad overview of exactly what it is your product does for people, how it helps them, and how they communicate that themselves. Because when you've got that and you really understand it, translating that into advertising materials is just so much easier and so much more effective. It's like pouring gasoline on a bonfire when you got to that point. One thing which, again, I just love talking about lately, because it's just such a fascinating thing, is that Facebook themselves came out and said the most successful advertisers on their platform split test creative, that's videos, images, copy, 11 times more than the average advertiser. So really, it's understanding that creative, understanding the messaging that's really going to turn people to action and turn strangers into customers, and then amplifying it with advertising is the best route to go. If you don't have that down, if you don't really understand exactly what it is your product does and how it helps people in their own words, then you should definitely be going back and doing those organic strategies first, working with list owners, communicating with people organically, and really get a deep understanding of that, and then translate it on into advertising.
Which I'm just going to say to the audience, we haven't pre-planned this. Honest, this is coming out organically. There's been no scripting going on here. But Dave, did you watch my session with Lucy earlier on this afternoon? Because
No.
I asked her at what stage a brand should start with influencer marketing, and she basically gave exactly the same answer you just gave, but with the phrase customer persona thrown in. It's like, whoa, I'm in the same place again. Because yeah, it's marketing is so much in the messaging, isn't it? And if we haven't got that nailed, how do we do it? But Dave, you said then we should try the organic methods. So therefore, the king of organic, even though you were talking about more than search, we have to come to Luke next.
Oh gosh, yeah, love organic, don't I? I think really, SEO is normally a consideration when people come to me and other SEOs when one of two things happens. One, an algorithm update kind of happens and people are panicking and their hair's on fire because traffic has fallen away, or they've kind of got to a point where they have enough money and enough capital to potentially hire that role and start to rectify what's going on. But SEO really is one of those things that should be baked into the epicenter of any e-commerce store, and it doesn't have to require a vast amount of money. We're not talking about having to invest thousands of pounds to get it off the ground and get the basics in place. And just when I talk about basics, I am in no means talking about meta descriptions and all that kind of really granular stuff, because one, it's not that important anymore, and two, it's a huge amount of time, especially if you've got an e-commerce store with lots of different products, lots of different categories. That's not really going to make that much of a difference. I'm thinking more strategic in terms of URL structures, subfolders, faceted navigation, as of course we've spoken about before, site speed, and just making sure you've got the core part of your CMS nailed. And it's really easy to do in things like WordPress and Shopify, although Shopify is a little less flexible in many ways. But honestly, if you get it right early on, it pays dividends later on. It really, really does. But equally, it's also an opportunity to go and find your paid opportunities as well. So if you're already leveraging paid, and you've been running that for maybe 6 to 12 months, depending on when it is you started, take a look at those top converting keywords and see how you can leverage those in organic. And it's not about switching anything off or competing directly with paid search. It's about ways in which you can potentially look at saving some money on some good performing keywords and start to explore new ones with paid. Of course, you can experiment with keywords a heck of a lot quicker in the world of paid than you can organic. So yeah, speak with those teams, get those agencies on board. If those agencies are managing both your paid and SEO, get them to talk to each other. Sometimes they can work in silos. And yeah, get on it early, make it happen. It's really, really important.
I like it. And yes, Luke, we did talk about faceted navigation earlier on today. And I should let everyone know that currently in the upvoting stakes, Luke is joint first with Val Geisler in the most popular sessions of the day so far. If anyone's intrigued by that, if you head to the replays tab, you can watch anything you've missed and see how many upvotes they've all had. Dave and Becky, don't worry, you have had upvotes, just not as many as Luke. Yeah. So we've had, especially as I would not have guessed if you'd asked me to put money on which session would have the most upvotes. The nicest possible way, Luke. I didn't think it was going to be faceted nav. Every day I'm learning.
It's prescriptive as hell, isn't it? But
yeah, it's just impressive. Becky, coming to you next, because organic takes time to deliver. For a new business or for any business, getting to understand your customers, you need to actually get some customers. So I'm going to take a rough punt and say maybe Google Ads is where people should be starting, because you don't need to know, it's a search intent based place, so you don't need to know that much about the customers, although obviously the more you know about the customers, the better it gets. So what would you say?
Yeah, definitely Google, as long as it's something that people will actually be searching for. So if you've got a really unique product that people won't even know exists, then you probably want to be looking more at Facebook, or you might want to utilize Google Display, something to do some more push-based marketing. But definitely if you're selling widgets and you want to get your widgets out and get some data on those widgets, Google Ads will be the fastest way to get some traffic going to your website. I would say start with either the kind of bottom of funnel terms for your products. So I'm talking a simple brand campaign, some really detailed product description type keywords, which really specific to what you sell. Because if they're going to the site and they know who you are, or they're coming in, they're describing exactly what you sell and they're not buying, then something's not quite right there. So it gives you a chance to tweak things before you broaden that net. Alternatively, Google Shopping, obviously you can get your product directly on the search engine results page. You've got your product, you've got your price there. It pre-qualifies people a lot, so you're not going to be paying you're not going to be wasting click money on people that aren't interested. So I would start with Google Shopping personally. And you might want to even refine that. If you've got loads and loads of products, you might want to take your best sellers to begin with and start there and get that working.
Excellent. Lots of good advice on how to get started. And of course, today we also had a session by Val Geisley, who currently joint first place on the upvoting in the sessions with Luke, who's here today. And Val's from Klaviyo, and she was taking us through using email to get your first 1,000 customers, where we touched on a lot of topics around getting those initial people that you learn from to then get the messaging that you feed into everything else. So if you're in that situation and you haven't yet watched Val's session, go back and watch it again. And if you watch Val's session, you didn't get that from it, you were asleep. So go and watch it again. Anyway, enough of my instructions to you on what to watch. We're here right now covering off key things around the world of customer acquisition. Now, tomorrow we have a session about customer lifetime value. Now, I'm not going to suggest we necessarily get into customer lifetime value in a deep way here, but we can't, something which we haven't talked about at all yet today, and I think we have to if we're talking customer acquisition, is how profitable or not should you expect your customer acquisition channels to be. And Becky, I know you spend your days driving things to the levels which customers want them to drive to. And are you just being still to annoy me here and freak me out? No, I think we've lost Becky's connection. So I can't send that question to Becky. So I'm going to send that question to Dave. In terms of, do you suggest people should be profitable or unprofitable in their customer acquisition, that first purchase from someone, or does it? Let us know.
Yeah, it depends very much on the strategy, right? So there is some we work with info products as well, and various different clients where they've got very, very heavy back ends, and then they use, for example, free plus shipping funnels on the front end, which are very, very effective, especially for what's the word I'm looking for? What's the word I'm looking for? Disposable consumer good products. For example, the perfect example of this is someone like Dollar Shave Club, right? They sold for $1 billion after a year or so of being in business, so they didn't do too badly. And that was with a really highly creative advertising campaign on the front end, and then a subscription offer, which is low ticket, and therefore you can afford to go into the red on the front end. And if you really know your numbers and understand your numbers, then you can go quite aggressively into the red on the front end in favor of driving a much bigger business in the long term. So it depends very much on the product. Obviously, if you're selling a $500 very in-depth bit of kit or luxury goods, for example, then you wouldn't want to be unprofitable on the front end by any means. So that's why we're constantly testing. And we often find that where clients think they've reached a point where they're happy and they say, okay, cool, well, these are industry benchmarks. We're getting this kind of profitability. We're getting 2, 3, 5x ROAS return on ad spend. Then we're happy with that. We're just going to sit there. We keep going. It goes back to that thing again, that old bit of advice from Facebook. They're like harking on about 11 times more than the average advertiser is how much people creative split test. The most successful advertisers creative split test. So if you do think you've reached a point where you're happy, you're going to 2, 3x return on ad spend. Keep testing. We always have a creative sandbox in any of our accounts where we're going through new creatives, cycling things, finding things that work more effectively. So again, broadly a bit of a fluffy answer, but it depends very much on the funnel type. If you've got a very good back end, the products that you sell to people afterwards, you've got a really dialed in email sequence, then it's not unusual to expect 20% plus of your revenue to come from email, as we touched on Klaviyo a second ago. But the most important thing is knowing your numbers, knowing how much you're able to go into the red and how aggressively you want to scale. If you've got a strategy to maybe sell in the next few years, or if you just want to grow a much bigger business much faster.
Nice. Okay, so it depends. To summarize in two words from Dave there.
That's what I should have said.
No, you gave a lot more detail there, but So you're saying it depends. Becky, what's your perspective? When a new client comes to you, how do you help them work out how much they can afford to be spending to get those customers?
So it's a challenging one for anyone new. That's always a sticking point because people always go, I don't know how much. But obviously, we get people to look at their profit margins and to go from there. What would be the maximum amount that is a viable amount for you to pay per sale? And we get them to simply maximize that number by how many sales they want a month to come up with an initial budget, because that's kind of our cutoff point. But it is hard, I think, convincing people to not go for the really low, because we get people go, I want to pay a penny a sale, to get people to compare what they'd be happy to pay to invest, for example, in print, not knowing what sales they're going to get off the back of that. So there is an element of considering what they're happy to spend on their general marketing to get a sale, and then factoring that in on a kind of more micro PPC level, and to get them to put that cost per acquisition target to us. But yeah, you definitely need to be prepared to spend more at the very beginning, and not waste money, but invest money in getting some of that data that will help you optimize for the future.
Excellent. And Luke, your perspective on this position? You're muted, Luke. Somewhere, somehow, we can't hear you. He has an idea. Hold on. Is he coming back?
Yeah. Right. Can you?
Oh,
no?
yes, we can hear you now.
Yeah?
We can hear you now.
Okay,
Yeah, we're good.
Wow. I didn't change any settings. That was unusual. All right, cool. So where am I on this? I'm quite biased in the sense of SEO, of course, is a very much a channel of invest early and get returns later on. But I think very much to tacking on to what Dave said, it really depends on what your business model is. For example, you can be a lot more I guess frivolous, if you like, with the investments you make if you're subscription based. If you have a really high retention, if you're in the world of supplements or something like that, where of course the idea is you get recurring revenue there. But I think where you'll kind of end of funnel, low loyalty, it's just a case of you are the number one retailer or the cheapest retailer to get that particular product from. I think you have to be a lot more strict with your approach in that regard. But there is some edge cases. There are definitely brands out there that I know are front heavy on brand, and of course that the initial acquisition is all through paid, and then they try and nurture and nature you kind of through the other free channels, whether that's organic or email, maybe a small amount of remarketing at a low cost to try and keep you engaged in that regard. I think Gymshark is a perfect example of that, where it's a brand built very much around brand in a society, but they've built a brand to the point where you've got a huge amount of brand loyalty there, you've got retention, you've got continued support and things like that. There's seasons to take a look at, there's championships and all sorts of things in analytics they can tap into. So yeah, I think just to be quite rounded again, it really just does depend on where you are, and of course your margins in your product. If you're working to quite a slim margin, if you're quite aggressive, and it's literally just a race to the bottom, you're of course going to have your hands tied behind your back in terms of how much money you can spend and what you get back. And lastly, I think it's just on your tech stack, isn't it? It just depends on how fluid and flexible you can be. If you have a really simple WooCommerce store, nothing really sexy going on in terms of personalization, you probably can't afford to really invest a lot of money at the beginning because you haven't got that nurture system in your disposal to use, should I say. But I'm always biased in the sense of, I think if you're very early on, sticking to your answer of around 12 months into business, you've got to try and experiment. So I would always say spend a little bit of money on experimentation and see what would happen just if you did focus on retention, and take it from there.
I had a marvelous lady on the podcast a couple of years ago now. I want to say PJ something, who ran goat milk stuff. Brilliant business in the US selling things made from goat's milk. And she shared this brilliant tactic that she uses, which is she takes each quarter of the year, and in each quarter of the year, she focuses either on increasing AOV, increasing traffic, or increasing conversion rate. So she goes kind of deep into that for 3 months, deep into the next for 3 months, deep into the next for 3 months. And I think it's a good rule of thumb for many things in e-commerce is to go deep. We're not talking about spending a day improving your Google ads. We're talking about spending a while improving your Google Ads or a while improving your SEO to really test it, to really see how it works and see how it can improve. Because, you know, it's one thing I'm not sure any of you mentioned, but I'm juggling various screens with Q&A questions and various things going on. So apologies if I missed this. But for me, I think one of the other key things on the profitability factor is the quality of the customers you find via different channels. So putting it really simply, often on Google shopping campaigns, you'll find customers who only buy one thing because they were looking for that one thing. They saw the picture, they saw the price, they went through and they bought it. So the AOV is usually worse than for search terms on Google Ads. So you get these, I'm not saying that necessarily tracks through to long-term customer lifetime value, but you get these big changes. So I would say the other thing which we need to do is make sure we're monitoring it between campaigns and between marketing channels as well. I'm seeing nods going on. Does anyone want to come in and add anything on that, or shall we skip on to the next question? Oh, David does.
I'd love to chip in on that actually, because you know what you said there about single products. Like, you know, really, there's two things to do here: is to increase profitability on the front end, which is to drop your customer acquisition cost and to increase the cart value on the front end, right? So we do have those situations. We're working with a number of clients now where they've got best-selling products which perform really, really nicely, and we're building out separate funnels for them, whereby we make an actual e-commerce funnel so that people who are focused in on that one product then get ascended through an upsell sequence so that we can actually increase the average cart value, so the amount that somebody spends in that first session, which means that we can then pump more money back into advertising. So once we're getting this lower cost of customer acquisition by focusing, again, something worth mentioning is focusing more on the problem that it solves. So, for example, we're working with a skincare brand right now, and really the big thing that this one product, their eye serum, solves is the wrinkly skin underneath eyes for older women. So we focus in on that, obviously being very careful about Facebook's policies, which is always fun, but we focus in on that specific problem, that one particular thing. And instead of sending people directly to a store where there's lots of different products that they go and look at, it's this one thing. We're focusing on the problem. So we're talking to people about the problem that they're having, and then they're buying that one product. And immediately on the next page, after they check out, we've got over that biggest hurdle, which is the icebreaker, somebody actually getting their wallet out of their pocket and typing in the credit card details and clicking purchase. It's the biggest hurdle you'll ever have to get over in terms of advertising, of course. Once we got people over that bridge, then we can upsell them multiples of the same product, or we can get them to a subscribe and save so that they're then a subscription customer rather than just a one-off customer. And then we can upsell them the full range as well. We won't get every single person buy the full range. We won't even necessarily get every single person subscribe and save or get multiples of the same product. But it only takes a fraction to really massively bump that average cart value. Remember, it's an average across the board, the average cart value, therefore giving you much more profitability on the front end that you can put back into your ad spend to acquire more customers. And then once they're in your ecosystem and you have that really effective email marketing system in place, and so they're like Klaviyo, then things really start to get exciting. You can get 20% of your revenue from those existing customers from email. So as soon as you start piling more customers in, you're building that ecosystem, you're making more profit.
I'm really glad you mentioned about kind of single product funnels, because like you, Dave, I straddle the world of info marketing and information products as well as e-commerce, and it has, I don't know, for the last 10 years it's befuddled me how few e-commerce businesses do a hero product to hero landing page to checkout to, well, hey, you're now a customer, let's sell you other things. And it's even because I come historically from the mail order world, where they get great at creating these brilliant, you know, in the back of the colored magazines, you'll see these quarter page ads for one specific product that are all about customer recruitment, that have been, you know, tested more than 11 times, definitely, to get that creative spot on to drive the response. But then you go to the URL and you're just on their website with all the clutter around you, and it's like, how have they missed that step? Luke, you're agreeing?
Yeah, I love this. I do love this, but this is one of those things where I kind of go, but I can't do that, because normally my clients are marketplace driven, so they're kind of resellers rather than brand D2C. Type setups, and it will be gorgeous to go away and create you know, specific landing pages for specific categories of product. But when these products are available from umpteen different retailers, it gets quite tricky. But I think there is a perfect middle ground for this, and it's creating what I like to call a department page or a merchandise landing page. So for example, to tack on to the example that Dave's talking about, let's say that Boots have that particular brand that Dave's been talking about, plus 15 other skincare brands in competition. But of course, if you're driving someone to a specific brand page, then you can merchandise and make a beautiful experience, which just talks about the eye cream, the supplementary products, maybe some accessories that go with it. And it's not quite as siloed and as effective and as driven as a single product, but it's a heck of a lot better than just sending someone to a category page and then it's like, right, I've got 12 products, what do I do now? And it's that really nice hybrid between a brand who has 5 products, and they can go down that really kind of creative route, and also then the marketplace, which is like, okay, we have 10,000 products. How do we accomplish that? And I find that can be a really nice middle ground. And on top of that, if you're really smart with it, you can sell that space. So you're making money before you sell anything, because you can say to, like, say Garnier, for example, other skincare brands are available, but you can say to these people that, hey, if you want one of these really pretty merchandise landing pages, it's going to cost you X thousand pounds over a year or a quarter or a month or whatever it is that you're in. But yeah, that's what I found can work really well in the marketplace space.
For anyone who's thinking, gosh, I can't ask the people I'm buying products off for money for my marketing, most of them have a pot of money set aside for helping their retailers market their product, but no one ever asks them for it. So do ask them for it, and tell them they'll get better positioning and they'll get all of this, and they will give you cash to improve your sales of their product. No brainer. Okay, we had lots of nods going on there, but I'm going to shift us on to our next topic, because it's something which we kind of touched on as we were talking through profitable or not so profitable, which is testing budgets. Because I often find that retailers have a marketing budget that must achieve X, and then testing somehow has to come under that whole, has to work into that overall achievement package. And it always strikes me as there really should be some money that we use to test, because 10 years ago, or however many years ago it was, we were just starting to test Facebook ads and people made some horrendous mistakes, but now they're doing great with it. And the same with Google ads. When Google Shopping first came out, and TikTok ads and Spotify ads and whatever else it is people are using, we should be siloing some money which we use to test and we have no expectation of return from in the P&L. So there's no spreadsheet which says we have to make £1,000 back for every £1,000 we spend of this particular bit of money. What sort of level should people be planning a test budget for? Because I think even the smallest business should have one. So any thoughts on test budgets?
I think it's an easier pill to swallow in the world of paid, because it's so reactive. And this is me not being a paid expert, so I apologize if I'm offending either of you two panelists. But it's almost like with paid search, you can allocate some money, and within a number of hours you start to run an experiment. I would love to be able to have a case in the SEO corner where I can say, give me 10% of the budget just to mess around with, and been able to return results. But you've got so many currents fighting against you, from algorithmic changes to fluctuations in demand to all kinds of stuff that are out of your control. That means experimentation is riddled with a lot of what ifs and questions. There are ways to do it, but they're very enterprise. There's definitely tools you can invest in. I'm trying to think of a couple of names to pass on, but I'll throw them down later on rather than spend time worrying about that at the moment. But the point is, it's very difficult to A/B test on a small site in the world of SEO. Corporate, we got lots of money, great. This is normally where I kind of fall towards more CRO and performance post-acquisition. So experimenting with landing pages, experimenting with sorting orders, removing some products, filter options. Of course, I appreciate this is an acquisition, but as an SEO, experimentation just doesn't really happen in that particular space. So I want to shut up now and let the other two people, who probably do a lot more experimentation than me, add some real value.
Becky, any thoughts on this one? No, I think you have added value, by the way, Luke, as well.
It's a difficult one to answer, because kind of we have some form of testing going on throughout all of our accounts. So even kind of established campaigns will have ad split tests going on. So it's whether you count that. But I think it's different as well, depending on how established your campaigns are as well. If you've got a nice profit going, and you've managed to save some cash and make your campaigns more efficient, then it makes sense to put more into trying new channels and new strategies. But we don't have a fixed, I wouldn't say 10%, 20% or anything like that, but there should definitely, I mean, I love the idea of it, Chloe. I wish more clients would silo a testing budget to put into new things, but it's not something I come across very often.
And how about you, Dave? Do you find, or do you recommend a specific testing budget, or is it, like Becky says, all ends up lumped in together?
Yeah, well, exactly as Becky says, there's every client's different, and the bigger clients have money to test and are open to it and understand these concepts, and then smaller clients they just don't have it, and it's both a beautiful thing that anybody can get started at any budget, but also it means that sometimes you have to start a little bit more bootstrapped. So it can vary. We typically in mature accounts have somewhere between 10 and 20% of budget testing in that, what I mentioned before, the creative sandbox, where we're constantly testing new creative, and that's not money down the drain. That's testing to, we're at least breaking even on that. It's just finding those creatives which are most effective. But then the two things that we really can control is tracking down the metrics, so really knowing your numbers. Something we do with every client when they come on board is give them a map out of their average cart value, their COGS, figure out exactly how much ad spend is going to pump out what kind of results. So we spreadsheet this through on a very simple spreadsheet, which is put this amount of money in. This is the current store conversion rate. This is how many sales we expect to see. This is the average cart value that we're currently getting in the store. This is the cost of goods sold, and therefore this is the profit that we can expect to see out the bottom end. Now, and then that spreadsheet's going to go, okay, amount of ad spend versus the amount of sales, etc. And it's going to calculate what cost per click we need to see for this to work. The unique outbound click-through rate, we always, as I say, is a very early indicator. Aim to have that above 1.5%. That's a rule of thumb across the board. So if you track on those early stage metrics and really shoot for them, optimize for the metrics, so you're following a map rather than just throwing money at the wall and hoping some sticks, then that is a much more effective and pragmatic way of doing so. Also, when people reach your site as well, I guess kind of moving into Luke's world a little bit more, making sure that you have stuff like Hotjar installed to track visitor journeys through your site so that you can see exactly what they're doing. Could be some huge things which are missed, just really simple things that you see as soon with Hotjar, incidentally, no affiliation whatsoever, but you can install their tracking code on your site, see exactly what's going on. Like literally they'll record the screen and show you where the mouse is going, where it's dragging across the screen, what people are clicking on, where people are scrolling to. And you can get some huge realizations from that to see exactly what's working and what's not. So that also goes into the testing. And if you track all those metrics all across the board, if you also add into those metrics what your on-store or on-site conversion rate should be, then you can start to look at the map and each day and each week say, okay, cool, how are we faring up against the map that we made when we started this journey? And then track back against that and make improvements where they ought to be rather than just throw money at the wall.
Nice. I am going to, we're going to kind of end our Q&A bit there. I'm going to add one tip into this, which Dave was saying between a 10 and 20%. So I'm thinking that's about 1 day a week. Because of course, the other thing which you've got to do with testing is not just about the money, it's about the time. So to be spending 1 day a week researching and investigating and trying out new ideas, I think would be hard to achieve straight away, but maybe go for half a day to get started if you're not yet doing this. But there are so many different marketing methods out there, and I frequently hear about people who have unlocked something new and just the results can be amazing. But you've got to do the research to work out what it's worth going after, which is why you attend events like this one. And you've also got to have some budget to do it and some time to do it when we get there. Right, before I go into the sum up of telling everyone why they should subscribe if you're not already subscribed to the summit and what's coming up tomorrow, I'm going to give you guys, we're going to say goodbye to you guys. So we'll start off with Dave. So Dave, where can people find out a bit more about you?
Yeah, so convenient across the bottom of the screen there, gripadvertising.com.
Excellent, like it. Becky?
You can find us at digitalgearbox.co.uk or on the eCommerce MasterPlan.com/crew. For our free offer.
Yes, for a free consultation. And Luke?
Yeah, am I mute? No, I'm not.
No, no, you're not.
The world's first time when someone thought there was a mute and they're actually not. You can find me at lukecarthy.com or doing my newsletter. You can subscribe to that if you like my nonsense and talking through some cool stuff in the world of e-commerce. So, yeah.
And caramel chocolate bars, of course.
And caramel chocolate bars, snacks.
Right, well, guys, I'm gonna just silence you all for the moment. So thank you very much for being here, and I will catch up with you guys after we go off being live. So unless you don't want to talk to me, in which case feel free to disappear, but I'll be there in a moment. Okay. There we go. Right, those of you who are still tuned in, thank you so much for coming on to our Q&A panel. I hope you got a lot out of this. A couple of things I need to tell you. First of all, those of you tuning in on Facebook and YouTube, you need to get access to the summit to catch the sessions with Luke, with Dave, with Becky that we've been talking about, the other ones with Val and with Lucy and with John that also happened today, and all 6 that are happening tomorrow. everyone out there, what you should be, here we go. Let's put that up on screen. This is what we've got coming up tomorrow. We've got me doing a little 10-minute intro to the day to give you a little bit of background on the sessions that are coming up. We've then got Greg Zakowitz from Omnisend taking us through post-purchase messaging. So tomorrow is all about customer retention. We've then got Matt Edmondson taking things kind of offline and far more manual. We've got a lot of sessions about emailing, messaging, automation and personalization, unsurprisingly in Customer Retention Day. Matt's turning it totally on his head and talking about totally different things. Then we've got Russell Flawn from Pure 360. He's getting really focused in on those first-time buyers, those beautiful first-time buyers, and how to get them to buy for the second time. Jessica Distillo Costa is coming on to talk about how you do this all without discounting. How do you get them to buy again without giving them an offer? With 2 awesome checklists she's going to be taking you through. We then go into the realms of loyalty, so proper loyalty, not points-based loyalty, with Camilla Bass from Fresh Relevance, with both what to do with your newsletters and what to do with your triggered emails. And then we wrap up with the customer lifetime value session I alluded to earlier, which is very much not mathsy and will make customer lifetime value so much easier to work out for everybody watching. So that's with Liat Karpel-Gerwitz from Wix eCommerce. And then we do this all over again tomorrow, our live Q&A panel. So hopefully I will see all of you guys there for that. And there's something else I'm supposed to tell you. So let's find the script so I can remember what Matt's supposed to do. Oh, I'm just supposed to tell you that an email, for those of you who are signed up to the summit, you'll get an email later on today with links to all the replays of today's sessions, replay of this Q&A, and some more useful info. Whatever happens though, I look forward to seeing you on Customer Retention Day tomorrow. For now, keep optimizing and have a lovely evening, because that's what, or evening, morning, night, wherever you are in the world, because you're not all in the UK. Have an absolutely lovely one.
You have a product you're passionate about, and now's the time to grow your online sales. Klaviyo can help. Klaviyo is the ultimate marketing platform for growing online sales. Build higher value customer relationships using email automation, SMS marketing, and list growth tools. Turn your dream into a reality with a free Klaviyo account.